Hello, my loves. Happy Thriving Thursday. I missed you. I know we did not have an episode last week and I didn't warn you until the day of. You guys, the eclipse got me down. I'm absolutely being initiated into a new level right now. This conversation actually happened shortly before that all kicked off. This was probably a part of the initiation. Honestly, this was such an expansive conversation, and yeah, I was saying the other day, I was like, I'm not typically one to blame the moon for my problems, but, I'm not blaming, I'm thanking it, actually, because it really helped to illuminate a lot of shit that I now get to transmute, and it is really supporting me in this process of raising my baseline frequency even higher, which is a lot of what we talk about in this conversation. So today I am bringing you another very incredibly expansive conversation that I had with the one, the only Lisann Valentin. She is an actor, a best-selling author, a spiritual life coach, a fifth-generation shaman, and just such a wise, magical, beautiful, beautiful soul. And this is actually a conversation we had on Instagram on my IG Live, and I just had chills the entire time, and I felt myself being expanded literally throughout the conversation. And afterwards, I was like, this has to be on the podcast. I need to share this conversation with as many people as possible. This needs to live on the Thriving podcast. So yeah, it's not, it won't sound like a typical kind of podcast interview. It was really more of just we went into it let's just trust the flow and see what comes through, and so much magic came through. We went everywhere. We talked about intuition, identity, purpose, abundance, self-love, being magnetic. We talked about business and playful strategy and sales. We talked about labels and how they can empower you or keep you stuck. We talked about self-sabotage and clarity and overthinking versus true thinking, and Lisann had such a wonderfully expansive perspective on this that is still stuck with me. We talked about suppressing your intuitive gifts and how to break through and actually open up your gifts. We talked about shape-shifting into success and what that really means, and how to allow and embrace and express all parts of yourself to truly discover and embody your authentic self, how to expand your capacity for joy, love, abundance so you can make more money, have more fulfilling relationships. We talked a lot about frequency and what it even means to align to a frequency. And we also talked a lot about self-love. And we even shared some really practical, tangible exercises in ways that you can start to connect to yourself and to practice self-love daily, because I know that self-love is such a hot topic, and I talk about it all the time. You hear everyone telling you, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself, but it's a whole different story to actually start doing it, and I know this firsthand. I truly, you guys, did not really start to practice and embody true self-love and compassion until this year, and I've been on this path, this self-development healing journey for at least 4 years now at this point. So it was just such a magical conversation, and me just telling you what we talked about is not going to do it justice. You literally need to just experience, because just literally witnessing this conversation will expand you. You'll hear us talk more about this idea of frequency and just being in the energy of expanders and of other people's frequency, and how that can really invite you to rise higher and how activating that is. And really just I always talk about, energy is so powerful. Energy is everything. And this conversation was an initiation for me. And I am so honored to be able to bring Lisann's magic to the podcast and to you. I cannot wait to hear what you think of this episode. And you will hear us mention at the end, Lisann, and I think I mentioned a few times throughout, my free workshop, 5K Frequency. If you haven't seen me talking about it on Instagram, it did happen live last Thursday, but you can still access the recording until the end of this weekend. So if you're listening to this episode and you're like, oh my God, I want to learn more about aligning to this frequency and how I can use it to make more money in my business and to align to my higher self and be more of me and all of that fun stuff, then just DM me 5K on Instagram and you'll get the link to watch the recording before it goes away. So just wanted to drop that so you don't feel FOMO if you hear us talking about the workshop and you're like, no, I missed it. You can still get in. And like I mentioned, we talked a little bit about the Akashic Records and how to access those and developing your intuition at higher levels. And like I said, this was recorded a couple weeks ago, so we mentioned Lisann's free accelerator, Akashic Intelligence. That is over, but she does have the doors open right now for her private coaching. I have done a one-on-one session with her, and it was incredible. Just like, I cannot even put it to words. She, again, it's just such a truly magical presence. She really, really, really has such a special way of just seeing you, making you feel so seen, and just holding the space and channeling the exact guidance that you need and really lifting you higher. So if you're curious to dive into Lisann's world and learn more about that, you can check her out on Instagram. I will have all her information in the show notes. So with that said, I'm so excited for you to experience the magic of this frequency. Also, just a quick heads up, the audio sounds like a little bit fuzzy in just the very beginning because it was like from an IG live, but it gets way more clear. So like, don't give up on it for the first few seconds, because I know like bad audio can turn me off, but I promise it starts to clear up within the first minute. Okay, so without further ado, here is my conversation with Lisann. Hi, I'm John Marie, and welcome to the Thriving Podcast. I'm your host and intuitive coach, dedicated to amplifying your intuition, transforming your mind, and igniting your inner magic to create a life you're obsessed with. 2 years ago, I was burnt out as fuck in a toxic relationship and a successful tech career that I just wasn't happy in anymore. I left it all behind with no plan, and now I'm running my own business, immersed in purpose and passion, happily married to my soulmate, and living out my dreams every single day. And if you're badass enough to be listening to this podcast, then you're already on the fast track to doing the same, babe. On this podcast, we'll dive into all things life, business, heart, mind, body, and soul, empowering you to up-level your life and embody your happiest, healthiest, and hottest self. It's time to make idealistic your new realistic, because you're not just here to survive, you're here to thrive. Lisann! Hi, beautiful angel queen icon. I love you. How are you?
Oh my God, I love this introduction.
I just love you. I can't help but just like obsess when I just like see your face.
Hey, beauty. I love you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. How are you? Where are you right now?
I'm in my car.
I see that. Are you in New York?
Today I am, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, I never know exactly where you are. You're all over. Oh my God. Well, I'm so excited. Thank you so much for doing this for me, or with me, not for me. For me also, because it's always a gift to get to chat with you. And yeah, I was like, I don't even know what we're going to talk about today, but I think a great starting point is always just to have us both give a little introduction so that people in my audience that haven't met you before can know a little bit about who you are, and then people in your audience can know a little bit about who I am, and then we'll just kind of let it flow from there, if that sounds good to you.
Okay. Yeah. How do you introduce yourself, unicorn? How do you do that?
How do So like your name, what you do, maybe a little bit of like how you got into it, you know, a fun fact. When I teach my pole classes, I have them give a fun fact, something you're grateful for today, whatever comes through, whatever you feel like sharing, whatever you feel like people need to know to understand who you are and why they should care.
Wow. If I'm on your IG live, then you should totally care. I'm Lisann Valentin. I'm an actor, author, and certified spiritual coach. For the Mongols out there, I'm a fifth generation shaman. So if you're not into that, maybe you don't want to watch this.
We don't have any muggles on this live.
No, they're not. They're not. Okay. What do? Basically, I help multi-passionate people, a lot of neurodivergent leaders, heart-led leaders, with the next level of their pivot. So mostly the multi-passionate people I know, they're pivoting a lot. And a lot of times once you make that shift, at least in my experience, you need help with the next step within the shift. And so I dance in the middle, which is what shamans do. We dance in the middle. And so that's like, you know, it's a short way of saying what I do.
I love that. No, that's perfect. Yeah, and I definitely want to talk more about that because I feel like there's not a lot of people that really focus on helping with that transitional phase. And it's when I was actually just talking about this kind of yesterday in my podcast episode about like why it's so difficult to make those pivots and like transitions because your identity is so attached to like what you're doing before. So I would love to like get into a little bit of like what you find the biggest challenges like come up with people when they're doing pivots. But before we go too deep into that, I'll just give a little quick introduction of myself. So my name is John Marie. I'm an intuitive business coach and somatic healer. And when I say intuitive business coach, it actually kind of has like a double meaning to me because I use my intuition to help coach clients, but also I literally coach on intuitive business. So I'm not just a business coach. I really feel passionate about helping entrepreneurs, specifically spiritual entrepreneurs, obviously, because if they're a muggle, they wouldn't really care about using their intuition in business, but really helping them get out of their head and into the body, because the body's where all the answers are and that's where all the magic happens, and really clear the fears and the energetic blocks that are in the way of accessing their intuition in their business and actually following it, because I really believe that the true path to success is leading your business with intuition and filtering it through a strategic lens, not the other way around. And so many people are putting strategy at the forefront, and they're always trying to figure out and like do, taking a very masculine, business is a numbers game approach. And I'm like, no, business is an energy game. Actually, everything is an energy game. And so I just really, yeah, and like you can vibe your way to success. And yeah, that doesn't mean that there's no strategy involved, but your energy and your alignment and your intuition is your moneymaker. And so that really is the most important thing. And so I'm super passionate about just getting into the body, connecting to your intuition, and yeah, building your business in that way that feels good and magical.
Yes. I think that we're lucky to be in a group of women that embody exactly what you're talking about in the way they approach business.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like, just watching you, just watching you, you can see like you really embody this way to, the steps, but you do it with so much play.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're strategic, but it
Yes.
doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I watch you, I'm obsessed. So when I watch you, I'm like, oh my God, she's just so in herself. She's so embodied. You're so embodied. And
Yeah.
so to watch that, like that energy alone, and I'm not saying this just to like BS you. I really mean this. Like
Yeah. I can
that is
feel
a
it.
magnetic, right? Because if
Mm-hmm.
somebody's like, oh, I want to get there, like me, like when I see you showing that you teach pole, I'm like, like I'm magnetized because like you're so multifaceted and you just own yourself so completely. And I think a lot of women, specifically women, when they're pivoting,
Mm-hmm.
you get to take a new level of ownership of self because you're
Mm-hmm.
stepping into a new identity, and now you're taking off the old clothes and putting the new ones on and trying to see like how they fit now. Like, can I wear this? Can I rock this? Is this me?
Mm-hmm.
But you do that. Like you seamlessly you do that. It's brilliant.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely receiving that so much. That was like so sweet. Just like get to start this off with just this like a beautiful rave, but that really means a lot. And yeah, I love the way that you described it. You described what I do better than I did. But it really is true. Like that's I always say like your magnetic energy is your embodied energy. Like embodiment is the key, and that embodiment really like by definition is like don't just be in the head, like bring it into the body, like radiate that energy and like live in it. And that is how I'm able, because I feel like this doesn't come through for a lot of people, like the way that you said, like I use strategy but it just feels playful. It's
Mhm.
because I'm embodied, and so like I don't have to think about it because it's integrated. Like embodiment really is like an integration. And so it's like, yes, you need to learn. I always say like the difference between thinking and overthinking is like thinking is when you actually are figuring something out for the first time. There, like that's why our analytical logical brains are so powerful and helpful, because we do need that, and that's like how we problem solve and things like that. but people are like 90% of the time overthinking, and they think that they're still in the thinking phase. And it's like, no, thinking phase is actually not very long. And then we move into overthinking. And so it's like thinking is when you're learning for the first time, is when you have multiple, like, and you're like, what is the, like, how am I figuring out what this is? Overthinking is when you're getting into that debate in your head, or like you have a nudge and you're denying it. And that's when it's like clear that you're not listening to your intuition. So it's like, yes, I learned the strategy and that I did the thinking, right? But now I know it. I integrated it. It's there. And what I didn't realize for the longest time, especially in the beginning of my business, was I felt like I just needed to keep learning more and more. Like, oh, I just don't get it yet. I just don't get how to message, even though I'd watched like 70 trainings on it, and it's like I actually only needed to learn it once. And then I needed to clear all the fear in the way of me actually tapping into the clarity and, the confidence that I could actually talk to the person I wanted to talk to. And then once I had that, the messaging just came easy. So I love that you just brought that up, because I think people don't realize like how little of a role like the strategy actually plays, and how easy it is to implement the strategy when you really prioritize the energy and the intuitive clarity and getting rid of the fears. And like you said, then you become magnetic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny because you said something in your way. Sadhguru, do you know who Sadhguru is?
Yeah.
You probably love Sadhguru.
Yeah.
He just said something like on the app about like how humans are obsessed with the idea of overthinking, but they're not actually thinking enough. And it was another way of saying what you said, because if you're truly thinking, you're not obsessing over an idea. Thinking is a process, right?
Yeah.
And you pause to ask questions. So
Mm-hmm.
there's more thinking involved, right? Because you're going to listen to the answers and then you're going to integrate. Thought doesn't stop, but obsessive patterns and behaviors that are oriented in anxiety, fear, stress, that's not overthinking. That's just a pattern of behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So that way when you pause long enough to integrate, right, to hear what are you asking you, why, where's this coming from, where's it leading me, that pause, that allows you the space you need to develop the next step in your processing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like upgrade your software. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Upgrade your
Yeah.
software. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that is so good. You are so wise. And you show up so humble, and you're like, how do I introduce myself? And then you're just like just you speak, and it's just like, what? I love that is so true. And I got a visual too while you were talking of like, I feel like thinking is when you're going like this, like you're moving forward to the answer and you keep asking questions to like hone in. And overthinking is when you're going like this.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that computer analogy too, because it actually reminds me of a video I just made the other day too about the intuitive business challenge, where I was literally saying, like, I have a challenge for you. Next time you have a question about something in your business, or you're confused, or you don't know what to do, instead of immediately, going to Google or going to ChatGPT or going to your coach and asking for advice, what if you just take literally a minute to take a deep breath, just like sit and ask yourself the question, and like actually allow an answer to come through and see what's there. Because the thing is, like, we have the answers, we just, like you said, we don't take that pause to actually ask and actually let it come through. And I even felt like yesterday I was like, there was something like an obligation, or like someone wanted to hang out or whatever, and I was like, oh, like, I really don't want to, but I feel like I should, whatever. And I was actively like, I know that my intuition is telling me one way or the other. I'm just choosing to like not give myself a moment to access it, to drop in, because it feels uncomfortable, So I was like, I'm aware that I'm doing this right now. And that's what we're always doing in our business. And honestly, all the time in life is like, it feels uncomfortable to actually take a moment and like acknowledge and drop into the body and be like, what do I want? Because the answer is usually scary, and we know it's going to be scary, and we know we're not going to want to hear it. So we're like, if I just pretend I don't know and I pretend I can't hear, then, I don't have to deal with it, but then we're just stressing ourselves out anyway. So I love that you brought that up about the pause, because it's so true. Like, I always say too, like 90% of like what I do with my clients is like, I just ask them the most basic questions, right? But it's like, they're not taking the time to ask those questions, or they don't know what questions to ask. And people come to me like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, or I don't know what I want, And I'm like, this is going to sound dumb, but the first thing I'm going to ask you is, what do you want? You know? And something will come through and they're like surprised. And I'm like, it's because you've been so obsessed with saying, I don't know what I want. You haven't actually taken the pause to ask, what do I want? And like you said, do that actual thinking process or that connecting process.
Yeah. I mean, that's fucking brilliant, because I'll ask people this all the time, like coaching clients or just people in general, like that talk to me, like they'll come, I had this dream or whatever, and then they want me to interpret it. I go, well, what do you think it means? Did
Yeah,
you dive in and
exactly. I
ask the
know.
questions? Right? Like,
I feel
I
like
can
you've done
see
that to
it.
me before too.
So like you're wearing glasses for this,
Yeah.
right? Like you can see with clarity through your lenses,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to see what you see unless I
Mm-hmm.
dive in first. If I dive in first and then share, you can help me refine and focus that perspective, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just give it to me and I don't dive in, I can just fucking reject it and walk away and never receive the message. I think
Mm-hmm.
part of the work is just to remind yourself to be curious and keep asking those questions. And a lot of times, like you said, we're scared. We're
Mm-hmm.
scared. We're
Mm-hmm.
scared of the answer. We're scared to say yes. We're scared to say no. Because we can't see the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other side of that could be something so amazing. By not diving in, we're actually saying no.
100%. And it almost always is, right? Something amazing. It's like I always say, follow the fear. Like that is how I got this visual the other day. Actually, I was like, I imagine fear is like this, like, you see the fear and they're like this scary figure and they're like, follow me. And you're like, where are you leading me? I don't want to follow you. And you're like really freaked out like the whole time you're following, but it's like, just trust, just trust. And then they actually lead you. And it's like this beautiful, like field. Actually, have you watched Ted Lasso? Oh
No,
my
but I.
God. You have to watch it, but there was basically a scene like that where they were like following this guy and it was really sketchy and they're like, what is this? And they were like really uncomfortable, but the person who had told them to go, they really trusted. And so they were like,
Mm,
okay, we just trust, even though it was super sketch. And then he was actually bringing them they were big football fans. He was bringing them to this big football field and the lights shined on. And I was like, oh my God, oh, I have energy moving as I say this. I was like, that is such a perfect example of like, it's gonna be like, but if you have that trust, then you know that it's leading you to somewhere better. I love how you said that about, people come to you about the dreams and they want to know what it means. And like, because I feel really passionate about that too, about in general, especially I feel like with being intuitive and things like people, intuitive readings and things like that, like you can kind of get attached almost to like getting those answers like from the outside, and like it's like, oh, I need a reading so I can figure this out. Oh, like pull a card for me so I know. And it's like, yes, those can be great tools. I've said this almost everywhere now. I feel like it's not even a hot take anymore because I've said it so many times, but but like even with like astrology and human design, like people, they are great spiritual tools and they have their time and place, but people can get kind of attached to them to where you almost feel dependent on that thing and you're actually externalizing your power. And it's actually, I knew you would agree with this, Nora. It's actually actively disconnecting you from your intuition. If you're like, well, my intuitive reading or my astrology reading said this thing, and it's like, well, what do you feel? Like you get to choose if that resonates or not, right? If I tell you your dream means one thing and you're like, well, I don't really feel like, then that's not what it means. Like, what lesson do you need? All it is a tool to ask a question. If you pull a card, it's like, well, what message do you get from that? That's the message you were supposed to get, right? Like you are the only one with the answers. And even with like the human design stuff, it's like we were talking about in the beginning with the identity and like attaching to the labels, it's like that can just be another way of attaching like labels and like putting labels in front of you to like validate your own intuitive desires and your own intuitive, the way that you are, your authenticity, right? Well, I'm a generator, so like, I do this. Like, well, you could also just like do that and that's fine, right? You could just like need to talk things out and that's how you process. You could just listen to your gut to make decisions and that's how you process. And like, actually, I don't really give a shit if you're a generator or not, And like, it's not to bash on human design because like I have like had moments where like I've gone to my human designer, I've gone to my astrology, and it was the validation I needed in that moment. Because while I am very passionate about personal responsibility and like giving yourself permission and trusting your own intuition, intuition. I do acknowledge we're humans, and sometimes you do just need that validation, right? Like, and it's okay to want it sometimes. But it's when you kind of start to cross the line and like get attached to it. It's like sometimes you needed to get over that hump and be like, okay, yes, that was the little nod that I needed, right? But then sometimes it goes a little too far, and it's like, remember your power. You have the permission. Like, you can give yourself permission. Like, you have that power within. So,
You know what it reminds me of? First of all, I love watching you channel because it's fabulous. Okay, it is fucking amazing. I'm gonna adjust my seat. Energy's moving throughout this whole thing. Okay, it reminds me of, like, you ever seen or ever had this experience where this might resonate with some people, might not with others. They get like a dresser from IKEA, and then there's the instructions, but it's like 4 pieces, right? And you're like, oh, but I can literally see how this gets put together. Some people can see how to put it together. They just have carpentry in their blood and they can just pop that thing together in 10 minutes. Some people want to read the numbers and the diagrams and just assess it and be like, well, where did this really go? Let me try it. Let me let it go. So people have different ways of approaching the same thing. Some people have, again, carpentry in their blood, and so like they can just see it and know how to respond like that. Yeah. Others really need the diagram. Sometimes we're a dance between both. And so like, I think it's cool for me to understand my horoscope signs, even though like my whole life I'm like, that doesn't really resonate, like, whatever. I think it's nice knowing my human design, but I'm not gonna like, I'm not the one that's gonna be stuck with the IKEA instructions. Like, I can't, like, shoot me, because I'm not. It's my way. I do the shit my way. I do life my way. I can't. I love knowing and seeing the blueprints and then deciding for myself whether it's a yes or a no. Like, and I think that those are the people that get magnetized. Like, that's why we're magnetized to each other, because that's how we roll in life. Not to shoot down, like, I'm not trying to yuck people's yums. If you want to dive into like all the levels of like Ayurvedic studies and whatever, like, fucking do that. Like, sorry, I'm cussing on Instagram, but like, that's do it. It's just not it's not my thing. I'm not gonna if I get stuck on a label. So like, I remember one time I said, I'm a 5th-generation shaman. That's for people's human minds. I can say I'm a 5th-generation unicorn, and to me, it means the same fucking thing. Like, it doesn't matter. It's just a fucking label. It doesn't matter. How many F-bombs can I drop in a minute? We should count.
No, 100%. I totally agree with that, because, and I do love the IKEA example. That's a really good example, because, and I totally agree too. Like, I love how you always say that I don't want to yuck people's yums. Like, I don't want to like sound like, I know that when I like say that I sound like a hater, and I know some people like love those things, but like, it's the way I look at it is like, if you like, maybe you can just see the pieces and put them together right away, and you don't need any directions. Maybe you've never put together an IKEA desk before, and so you're like, I feel like maybe this can make sense, but like, I'm going to follow the directions just to be safe, right? Or, maybe you're like, I definitely could not do this without the directions, and you read the directions. But then it's like, if you like, you build it, and then like you get another piece of furniture, like, let's just pretend, even though you wouldn't realistically, pretend you're getting the same thing over and over, right? The same table over and over. You get the table again, and like you build it, and then you get the table again, and then you build it, and you get the table again, and then you build it. It's like, by the 10th time, you don't need the directions, but you're still following the directions. That's like, because you've gotten dependent on it. So that's where I feel like the balance is, like you said, the dance between, is I feel like that's when it goes too far, like, in my opinion, is to where it's like, now you're just using that as a way to like actually not just trust yourself when you actually do know like the way forward. And on the label thing, I'd love to go back to that, because we were talking about in the beginning too, and I'm curious, like, kind of about like how you help like your clients and like the multi-passionate people too with this like labeling and identity shifting, because I know that's been a big thing for me. And even when I feel like that was a big part of my kind of like first phase of my journey, right? Where I was like disconnecting from the label of like software engineer, and like the label of like that I was in this, long-term relationship and whatever. And then like reconnecting with like, I'm a traveler, I'm a musician, and starting my business. Like, I'm a CEO, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a dancer. Even I remember that was really hard for me to like say I'm a dancer, but I was like, I dance every day. Like, how do I not say I'm a dancer, And I was trying to like water it down. Like, well, I'm an amateur dancer, or I'm like, and Yeah, I remember writing a bio, and that was a big moment. Just writing that bio for like, I was actually applying to teach classes somewhere else, and I was like, I had this epiphany. I was like trying so many times. I was like, I can just say I'm a dancer. I dance every day. Like, you are what you do. I'm a dancer, and that was a big moment. And I was like, wow, can't believe how hard it was actually for me to just take on that identity. But yeah, and then I realized like maybe the beginning of this year, I've been in my business for like 6 months or so, that I was actually then starting to get attached to the new labels. You know, like I was like, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a CEO, I'm this. And then I was like, well, wait a minute, now what am I without those labels, you know? And it was almost like I wrote a post about this in my reflection. I was like, I felt like I was in high school again, like trying to find myself. I was like, I thought I already found myself. And I was like, you don't ever just find, it's not like just one self that you find, right? It's like an ongoing process. And really, what I had forgotten to remember was that I always have the power to choose how I identify at any moment. And so I can like choose, yes, I like identifying with this label, but that doesn't mean that it's a box that I have to stay in or that I have to be attached to.
No.
So yeah, I would love like your take on that and like how you see that maybe come up with your clients too, or how that's maybe even come up in your own life with that. Yeah, like identity work and like pivoting and taking on new things and like switching these big attachments that we have in life.
I think sometimes the attachments may even come from just things that we borrowed from other people, like other people's expectations and viewpoints of what we're supposed to look like underneath that label.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us, the multi-passionate, we are shapeshifters, and we're very comfortable shifting into our shape depending on what tools are needed and where the flow is taking us into at any given moment. So we've aggregated all these tools to create a life that's really unique to our makeup. And when we really honor that the way you do, where you embody those gifts, you actually serve the world at a higher level. You're actually allowing yourself to meet your highest aspect and say, I am one with that. I am that. And so I can show up as the actor, the author, the dancer, the coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can show up and it's not hats. You shape shift into that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a lot of us have been ingrained early on that like you wear a hat, you take it off and you put on another hat and then you take that off. And that's really just because people want to, where do you sort all the IKEA cabinets? I need to see the aisle and the F number 4. Like, I need that from my brain to understand how to categorize this thing. And so we do that to people. My brain wants to understand how to categorize you so I know whether or not I feel safe with you, whether or not I can engage with you, whether or not we're the same. And if we're same, we create community, right? That's what the labels at a very basic level do for us.
Yeah.
When you strip labels or add a bunch, it kind of can take muggles and they'll look at you like, oh my God, I don't know what to do with you. Literally, I don't know what to do with you. Right? So either they
Yeah.
walk away or they'll make an opinion. You'll
Yeah.
have those interesting interactions. When you find your people, you
Yeah.
guys are like, we're just shapeshifting all day. This is great. We feel safe, seen, heard, and really empowered.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I end up helping people realize is that they can look inside themselves and find their comfort zone within their shapeshifting. And so when I have like the political figure who is highly intuitive but doesn't want to honor it because it looks too woo,
Mm-hmm.
we find ways where she can meet herself and use those gifts within that political realm. When I worked with like one person she's a Tony nominee, and God bless her, like she's one of my favorite people. And she was afraid to be big, but she has a big personality. And when we were working together, it was sort of like she had been so used to closing herself off from her intuition, from her other passion projects, and it was allowing her to find that space within that let her play again. So a lot of the work that I do is like getting into our littles
Yeah.
so we can play again, so we can shapeshift and merge our passions so we show up bigger. Really, at the end of the day, it is about a form of inner child work that is spiritual. Not where the inner child is wounded and needs tending to, not necessarily that. Where the inner child is asking your adult to come and play again. Your inner child is saying, hey, I know better than you. Stop the shit. Like, let's go do what we came to do. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's a flip side, but it's highly, energy and spiritual. I mean, you play in this realm.
Yeah. No, 100%. Lisann, I love you. You are an expander. You expand me because when you talk, you open up things in me. Like honestly, I feel like I have a lot of conversations with people, and how do I put this? I'm not trying to put anyone down, but like I don't know, we're just not connected. We're not on the same frequency, you know? And I feel like I didn't realize until having this conversation with you that I feel like a lot of conversations that I have are, I'm like just saying the same things, you know? We're almost like rehashing the same, thing. And it's still things I'm passionate about. But you really open up and help expand my perspective and like describe things in new ways. And I just really appreciate that. Because the way
Thank
that you
you.
said that about the shape shifting, and I've heard you say the shape shifting thing before. I've never actually, to be honest, fully gotten what you meant until just now. Um, because I love the way you described it, is like it is literally like we were talking about that embodiment. It's
Mhm.
like not the hats, it's you are embodying. Because if you're putting hats on, right, you're not embodying any of it.
Mhm.
Right. So I love how it's really just like letting yourself show up fully, like you kept saying, show up bigger, like show up fully embodied in whatever aspect of yourself it is that you're wanting to express.
Mhm.
And I love the emphasis on, finding something you said about like finding that safety in yourself and how can I do that within myself? Because I feel really passionate about that too, because, I do a lot of like somatic work and work with the nervous system and stuff. And I find that it literally just always comes back to like, well, like, does your nervous system feel safe with this or not? Like, which is kind of what you were saying about the muggles. So like, I don't know what to do with you because it's not familiar, right? And it's like, if your nervous system doesn't view it as safe to like identify this way, or to like take this action or to do this thing or to make this much money or whatever it is, like it's not happening. Like your nervous system is the big boss. And that was like the biggest shift for me too within my business, especially financially, was, I was like blocked, why isn't anything changing? And it wasn't really until I started going into my body and doing that nervous system work and the inner child healing and like the honestly, like a lot of the somatic stuff I do is very similar to what you're saying, like the inner child and like how can we like, yeah, integrate, let her feel safe so that she feels safe to come forward and like listen to her guidance. And until I started doing that, like nothing was moving. And when I started doing that work and prioritizing, like how can I feel safe and expand my capacity and like work with those parts of me, that's when things literally took like the momentum just like literally blew up. Like it was just like exponential growth, like compared to the past like 8 months or 6 to 8 months before I started focusing on that. So it's crazy. And I was just talking to your friend the other day too, and I was helping her through something, and it came back to like, oh, she doesn't feel because she doesn't feel safe, or because then she doesn't feel good enough, and I was like, it always comes back to that. And she's like, damn, it really does. She's like, it's like almost laughable sometimes where you finally get to that epiphany and it's like, oh, I just didn't feel safe to actually let myself do this, And it's like, it sounds so obvious, but it's still such a huge breakthrough in the moment. I feel like that's like what's so magical about this work is it really is all just a remembering. I have a little bit of energy moving too now as I say this. It really is all just like remembering what we already know, but like it's such a magical process, and it's still that moment every time. It's just like breakthrough and expanding bigger and bigger and bigger.
It was, I'm like watching your colors shift as you talk. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's
What
so
are my
in it. Like,
colors?
one time it was like iridescent rainbow, and then one time it went super like yellow, like mustardy yellow, like that. And I
Ooh,
was like, oh my gosh, she's like, her halo is like big. So it
I
was
love
just sort
that.
of like listening to you talk. I was thinking, and probably because Nora's on the call, I was thinking like embodiment looks like a CEO who's breastfeeding at the table. Like she's
Mm,
the mom and she's CEO. She doesn't have to put mom away to be a CEO.
I love
But
that.
in the past, that was the programming. That was the old computer programming. You have to put one away, right? And it's
So
like, no,
true.
no, you actually, you don't have to do that shit. And then I was thinking about something that you said about the somatic work that you do, because I did the exercise you posted about
Mm.
like tuning into your body. It reminded me a lot of Ken Honda. You familiar with Ken Honda, Happy
Oh,
Money?
I don't think I
It
am
was,
actually.
oh my
Oh,
gosh.
that's a book, right? Happy
Mm-hmm.
Money. I've heard of the book, yeah, but
Yeah.
I haven't read it.
So when you're like tapping in and talking about like what you can manifest any amount of money, but can you hold it basically? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And where does it feel safe and go through the numbers or whatever? I was like, this is like Joe Marie's version of what Ken Honda teaches too, because he's like, if you can't hold the
Mm-hmm.
frequency, then your job is not to manifest the amount you can't hold, but to open up your container, right? So you
100%.
can magnify that, right? And so it was like, oh, I love that you're teaching that with when it comes to like what people are interested in is like magnifying their abundance,
Mm-hmm.
right? But by doing that within themselves first, it's a very sneaky wisdom thing to do. Like we're talking about money, but now I'm actually teaching you how to hold more abundance, hold the
Mm-hmm.
frequency of abundance, so you can magnify it.
Yes.
I see you.
100%. 100%. Girl, that's it. And I love that you said the frequency of abundance because I'm like, not subtle, not so subtle plug for 5K frequency.
Yeah.
My workshop. That's like why I named and that name actually, you remember I was talking to chat and I was like, I'm not sure what to call this. And was playing around with a couple names and I was like, none of them are really hitting. I literally got woken up at 4 a.m. just to be like, 5K frequency. I wrote it down and I went back to sleep.
That's
and
perfect.
I was like, oh, how did I not think of that before? But yeah, that is so true. And one thing I wanted to say was when you gave that example of the CEO and the mom, I heard immediately, just like it's allowing all parts of you, like all parts of you at once. And that's true authenticity. Like I feel like I talk a lot about authenticity, but I feel like that's kind of a buzzword now. But like really that's what it is like how can you allow all parts of you, like you said, I think the reason why I didn't get your shapeshifting thing as first is because sometimes shapeshifting can have a negative connotation of like we shapeshift of like, oh, I have to now hide all these parts and then just present as this one when I'm with these people and then just be this way when I'm with these people and like, and it's like yeah, I do a lot of work with my clients on like really a lot of people come to me and they're like, how do I don't know who my authentic self is, so, and it's like, yes, you do, like all of you is your authentic self. And it's just like living in alignment with your truth, which is all of you and expressing all of you, right? And not hiding. Like, it's just not hiding or feeling like you need to hide anything. And I actually, after a session with a client the other day, like we were doing that, like, integration and like this past version of herself that didn't feel safe. And I was like, what does she need to come forward? And like we did this whole practice and it was so cute at the end. And I was like, does she feel ready to like go forward with you? And in the visual, she's like, she just jumped in my arms. So she's like ready to go. And then like afterwards, like she messaged me and she was like, I'm ready to really like build like this sisterhood within myself of all the parts of me that are like ready to show up together. And I was like, oh, I love that, like sisterhood within myself. And that really hits for me too. So I feel like a big thing is I've always been like, I don't have that community. I don't feel like I have that sisterhood. And it's like, I always say like, well, it is always within. Like whatever thing you don't feel like you have out, it's because you don't have it within. And that was the first time I really realized, oh, I could even get that feeling of community and sisterhood within myself, with all those different parts of me. Um, and the other thing you were talking about was money. So I hate to like totally pop back over, but there was something I wanted to say on that was about, yes, it's like you want to magnify abundance and like get the money, but it's also that you need to be able to hold it and it like expand like your ability to hold it and like your capacity for it. And you said a capacity for abundance, and something that's been coming up so much for me and for my clients is this theme of like your capacity for joy. And like realizing that it's like we all feel like we have to trade off something, and like we'll be successful in one area and then, oh, what do you know? Now my relationship is going to shit, or like, oh, now, I found love in my life, but I'm broke, and it's like, or, things are going really well with my relationship and my job and now I'm gaining a bunch of weight. And it's like, it's not a coincidence, right? It's because you have to make your body is thinking I have to make the sacrifice somewhere. I don't have the capacity to hold. It's almost like if you're like literally holding, and it's like, okay, here's like the money, here's the relationship, and it's like, well, I'm gonna drop them, so I have to literally drop a ball, drop one of the balls out, and like, stop holding, like the abundance so that I can make room for these other things that you're calling in. And that's why expansion and expanding your capacity is so important because like you said, like it's not just about money, and that I don't think people realize like it's not about money, it's not about love, it's about like all, and like how much can you hold, period. Like what are these bringing you? Like how much love do you have the capacity to hold in your life? How much joy, how abundance, and like they're all very similar concepts, but Yeah, I've been noticing just like that this is coming up over and over and over of just like people being afraid to be happy because they don't realize it actually doesn't feel safe to their system to have that much happiness in their life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can see it, but like as you were talking, the internet was doing like crazy town for me to see you, and I was like, oh, she's moving so much energy right now. This is crazy. So yeah,
Doing air magic.
yeah, no, seriously, and it's, you know, if you're trained to believe I can have this, but then this goes, so then I need to choose, right? And unfortunately, a lot of people did have to choose growing up. If I needed to speak my truth, but I also want to feel safe at home, I couldn't speak my truth.
Yeah.
I needed to choose safety.
Yeah.
And safety had to look like XYZ, not me speaking my truth, right? That's like one very severe example of that. And so if you opening your container for overflow, right? For overflow, one, deciding that it's not even about deserving, it's your birthright. If you decide that the rules of this game require you to receive all that life has for you, the beauty in it, just wrap your head around that. Can that sentence land? If you feel stuck on something that is within that sentence, that's when you get curious and start asking questions. So you start spring cleaning those spaces so that way you can hold more. Sentences like that can be really triggering if that person has never thought about life that way. If you think life is a fight, that you have to constantly have your guard up and be pushing and pushing and hustle, then that is true for you. And you can reframe whatever you desire to reframe. If you think life's an invitation with adventures around every corner, that feels different. Even the way I said that feels different, right? It's kind of like a zoom through. And so if you can accept an invitation or decline it and not have this idea that, oh, if I said no to that, I'm going to lose the next opportunity. No. It's like I said no to that now. There's something else around the corner and I decide. It's a different energy, it's a different frequency. But since we're talking about frequency, we're talking about abundance, even what we're going to talk about tomorrow is, and I'm going to, if it's okay, I'll share something. I think it'll help for this, whoever's watching this right now. I talk about the Akashic records, and essentially that's a frequency. Okay. And so you can tune into that. And it's the same thing when you're tuning into higher levels of, I keep wanting to tell you, Jo Marie, like you're a master, because I keep hearing mastery and I'm not saying it, but I'm like, you're a master, right? So in this space of mastery, look, so like if I say that to you, you receive it. You're able to receive that abundant statement.
Yeah.
If someone said that to somebody watching, you're a master. If you're listening and can you say, I receive that? Like, does it hit? Like, does it go, oh, feels good, or do you feel pushed against it, resisted? That's a good space to ask questions in. If you want to attune to higher levels of frequency, you don't look outside, you look inside. And so, like, I don't know if you do this, but one of the things I like to do is visualize a figure eight in my body, in my energy body. So, like, it's at the center of my heart is the center of the eight, and it goes around my head, crosses at my heart, and goes to the bottom of my body, and just focus on that. You could be dancing and focus on a figure eight. Some people invite like heart brain coherence into that. Like, I want to be aligned. My ears are ringing. Frequency is changing. So like they want to align both parts, right? And so if you can align your heart and your head, let's just speak very practical terms without the woo-woo eight symbol, then you can make better decisions. You're using both aspects, right, of your body, your heart and your rational mind, right? So your intuition and your logical thinking. And you're able to ask better questions from this space. Does that make sense? So like, oh my God, I did a thumbs up.
Makes sense.
And so if you're opening up your abundance codes with you, right, with the way you're teaching people how to do that, you're actually entering another level and you're able to engage both aspects in union and harmony, so you can ask better questions and open up more space and enter different frequencies, so life starts to look different from you. You're doing one free thing with Jo Marie, and what it's actually doing is expanding you to open up to so much more.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for for the support, but that is such a good take. And you're so amazing. I love what you said about like receiving, like back to the very beginning of when you started talking about like, can you receive even that truth? Like, can you receive that? Because I think it is such a big epiphany for, and it is hard, can be difficult for people to accept at first that like you actually make the rules. Like, that is a big thing to confront. Like, you actually get to choose like what you subscribe, the stories you subscribe to, and like what the rules are. Like you said, is it an invitation or is it a fight? And like, really, like, it can be scary to own that power, but then it's like, oh, actually, but that's also so empowering. Like, I get to choose and I can just choose, but it's again, does it feel safe to choose? And that's where that frequency and like the somatic work is so important. And I love the way that you explained that about the frequency, because it's so true. Like, I don't think people realize, like, when you're like us on this call right now, like, it's not just the benefit of learning like what we're saying. It's literally being like in this energy. Like, we are literally both expanding through this conversation. So that energy of expansion is like coming through. Everyone watching this, is their frequency is raising by being a part of this exchange and experience. And this is, I talk about this, I'm obsessed, because like even with sales, I'm like, people like sales scripts and all this, I'm like, oh my god, like people don't actually care. And like, it's about how you feel. If you feel it, then you want, it's a yes. Like, it's, you're a yes to things that like you feel and align to that frequency of. So it's like, like when you're passionate about something, like you're in that frequency of alignment and truth, and people feel it and they're like, yes, I want it because I want to feel that way. That's the magnetic energy. Like, if you aren't on that frequency, it literally does not matter like how perfect your messaging is, or like how well, like you could even have exactly what like this person is looking for. But if you don't have that aspect, then like it's not going to resonate. I always say, like, like you were saying about, do you feel resistance when somebody tells you that, like, you're a master, you have this and that? And again, to put it back in the context of business, because that's just what I talk about all the time, so it's the first example that comes to my head. Like, you could get all the advice and the business advice in the world, or even like advice, it's like the classic, like, you tell your friend you got to break up with him, right? If you're not on the frequency to receive that, it will not land. Like, it just will not land. And on that note, that's basically what the core of what I'm teaching in 5K frequency is about, because that's what I didn't realize before, is like, even with like confidence, I feel like people are like, oh, I just gotta like be confident and like, fake it till you make it, and just like, how would I show up confident? And it's like, yes, you can do that. Yes, that is powerful work to like do, to like just show up even before you feel it. And at the same time, there's just a difference when you actually change your frequency to where it does, you lose that force because you're just there. You know what I mean? It's like, before I was trying to pump myself up all the time. It would be like, it's gonna happen, I know it's gonna happen, da 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 da, and I always tell people, yes, you'll always hear the doubt voice is not gonna go away, but you won't feel the doubt anymore. You'll hear the doubt still, but you won't feel it. And when you feel that force, and you don't feel that, like, sometimes you just have a gut feeling something's going to happen, right? That's because like you have actually expanded your capacity and you're aligned to the frequency of the timeline of that thing happening, So like, I'll just tune on and be like, well, do I have a gut feeling this is going to happen? Yes or no? And if no, I'm not on the frequency yet. And if yes, then I'm aligned to it. And I think it's just like I was saying the other day, it kind of is really like the only shortcut to success. Like, it's like, you really can know, like, am I there yet or not? And I don't know, I just feel like no one is talking about that. Like, if you align to the frequency, then you're there. Like, you're literally there. And if you're not, then you're literally not there. And it will never, like, you never be there. And like, I don't know, it's just, it's that simple. It's that simple.
It is actually, for some people it's going to go over their heads, right?
Yeah,
Because they're like,
yeah,
what the fuck are you
right.
talking about, frequency or whatever? Like, so that's an energy. So like, let's name it, right? So like, the frequency of doubt, you said like, you won't it'll be there but you won't
Yeah.
feel it. To me, when I things like, they're teachers, doubt, fear, these are huge teachers. They show up to teach you something, to show you a part of yourself that you're not looking at.
Mm-hmm.
and they feel heavy because their presence is very strong.
Yes.
And so, especially when you're attached to them, you're like not just holding hands, you guys are bear hugging it through life, like fear and doubt, like forever besties, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they're there to teach you something. They can be present, but they don't have to own you. They don't have to
Yeah.
embrace you. You can let go. You can say, "I see you. I honor you. Thank you for showing me what I need to learn to move to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
I value the lessons." And then you keep moving forward, and then you don't feel the weight of their presence anymore. Of course, you hear it,
Mm-hmm.
but then you like acknowledge it. Don't shove it away. We're not in the business of shoving things down. Shoving things down make it really hard for you to walk after a while. Do you know what I mean? Energy's moving too
Mm-hmm.
fast. So the flip side is like an invitation, like the example you gave. It's if it's time for someone to walk away from a relationship or something, can you lean into the energy of self-love? What does self-love feel like to you? Have you never met self-love? Have you never invited them into your house? Has it been a long time that you danced with self-love? If you're familiar with the dance of self-love, you know when it's time to let go, to spin, to reunite. You understand this. But if this is a new concept, then maybe the invitation is to reacquaint yourself with
Mm-hmm.
self-love. And so try to find examples of love around you where, for me, self-love is another form of unconditional love. It is without condition. And so if you're like, I don't know what that looks like, all the love I've ever known is conditional. Find examples of when you feel love burst inside of you. So for some
Mm-hmm.
people, they see a puppy and they just burst into this beautiful, pure feeling of love and joy and peace. Some people, that's a work of art. Some people, that's architecture. Some people, it is another person, as a child. Look for the proof. Look for the proof. Look for the proof. Lean into that feeling and then hold it. Once you notice it, say, now I get to play with this for me. Once you lean into self love, you're
Mm-hmm.
allowing yourself to rise to that level, that frequency, that energy, that state of being that will allow you to see the road ahead and what invitations are on that road. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like a way to say, like, this is how I'm going to see this idea of frequency. For
Yeah.
others, you completely get that it's roads of energy that you get to lean into and
Mm-hmm.
flow through. For others, they just need to know, like, what's the human way of
Yeah.
saying, there's another reality available to me. I can live life a different way.
Yeah. No, I love that you named it that way, especially with, the doubt and the fear being teachers, and like because that is how you shift, right? Like that's how you align to that like new reality, and like how you feel the shift energetically is like by allowing the feelings to be felt, essentially, right? It's like what you're saying is like looking at the doubt, not trying to push it down or forget about it or suppress it or think it always, it's like just like being okay, like I feel this heavy, like I feel this down the fear, like you said, like can I go to it and ask, like what do you want me to know? Like why are you here? And the crazy thing is how actually quick it can be, and it's not easy to access. Even like I teach this, I've been working on it for a while, like I still like you have to really create this space, like learning how to feel your feelings, yeah, is a process. And like a lot of my clients come to me and they're like, how do I feel my feelings? I've like never felt them before, like, and it's a very foreign thing. And it's like remembering how to hold space for yourself, and actually like, because I find the biggest thing that comes up, this is the biggest thing that came up for me, is I would be like, oh, okay, like I'm feeling this heaviness, I'm feeling like sad or anxious, I have to feel it so that I can like heal it, like I have to feel it so like I can fix it, and I wasn't coming at it from that place of self-love. Like you said, I was coming at it from like, this is a problem that needs to be fixed. And so it can be difficult to, like when you're especially like new to this kind of stuff, to learn how to like really approach it from love and compassion, and actually genuinely be like, I know that you're just trying to help, I know that like you were hurt, like what do you need me to know, and like to give it that part of you the love that it never got. Something that's really helped me like on my journey with self-love, and I was talking to my sister the other day, and forgot the topic, but I was talking about like, talking to yourself lovingly and compassionately. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I was like, no, but have you done it? Because there is such a difference. Everyone talks about self-love now, right? Like, yes, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. But how many of us are actually embodying it? And one thing that really helped me in the beginning was because it felt uncomfortable. Like I was like, I actually don't know how to talk. Like I'm so used to putting myself down. I was like, I don't even like it doesn't. feel accessible to me to try to just talk to myself lovingly. I don't even know how I would do that. So I always say, like, think of someone in your life who is just like, loves you unconditionally and is always like cheering you up and pumping you up and saying it's okay and comforting you and giving you whatever you need. Like for me, that's my husband. It could be a parent, could be a friend. And even if you feel like you don't have anyone in your life, like, your higher self or God or like, anyone who, or just think of the nicest person you know what I mean? And be like, well, how would they talk to me right now? Like when I'm saying this, and actually take the time to like when I was just first like getting into this, I would like write out a message to myself, like pretending that I'm him, like talking to me. And then I would say it out loud to myself. And the first time I did it, I literally cried saying those words because to actually, energy moving again, to actually feel that love coming from me to me, and that was like my entry point into accessing it and actually being able to like welcome and hold the space for all of those negative emotions with compassion so that they can actually be felt and free the way that they need to be and want to be.
I love that. I think that's such a powerful exercise to write it and read it out loud, to hear your own voice saying words of love and compassion to oneself.
Yes.
I don't think, I think a lot of people are afraid to do that, or they might try it once and then they'll drop it. And that's one of those exercises where you got to keep at it until you let it, until you let yourself receive it. So you can receive those words. I remember when I first started doing that, it was I am, but when I changed it to you are, it hit different. And so like I do you are. I even have my phone text me my you are statements at different point in the day. So I can pause, be with it, and like remind myself who the fuck I am. Like, and I think that's like we sharing these tools, but like I know for sure, I know you do. Like I do the things I'm talking about. It's not like I need to reset, I need to reboot, I need to upgrade, I need to just remind myself of my why, like all the time, all the time,
All
and
the
to
time.
also like to expand, because the expansion doesn't stop. It's not like I've reached my potential. Like
Yeah.
maybe, but you can keep going. You know.
It never stops. It's always new layers. And that's why I say, like, when, especially in this space and like coaching and spiritual healing, it is, like I said before, it's just a constant reminding. It like really is like just remembering, like, like do the tool, especially in coaching, because it's like, yeah, of course we know all the answers. But again, how much are you embodying it? Like, embodiment is just that magic. And even today, I've had like a really busy week and I had class today and then we had this live and then, I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have time for my energy practice today because and I was like, no, no, no. Like that voice comes up that's like, well, you don't have time for your energy practice because you got to work after the live. And it's like, well, this is my work. So I'm clearing at least an hour to prioritize this because I know that's most important. And if I'm not embodying it, then it's not going to come through. Um, so yeah, I love that, and I think that's a great point to end on, honestly. And also, though, when you were talking, another quick, because I love how you said like hearing it in your own voice really like makes a difference, and just like actually, it's perfect because we're talking about reminders. Another really powerful healing practice for me, like with self love, actually, like back when I was going through a breakup, was the book A Gentle Reminder by Bianca Sparacino.
No, but
But
I'll
no.
tell you why I was nodding. Go ahead. I don't know that book.
I would just read a passage from that book every night out loud, and I would read it over and over out loud until I started crying. And it was just like such a powerful way. Like you said, I would read it until I was able to receive it. Because I would read it, I would read it, I would read it, and then it would just like break through. And energy moving again. It was just such a powerful way to like bring up the emotions that needed to be felt when I didn't know how to bring them up and how to let them be felt. So I think like, yeah, like getting those words and those reminders from whether it's from a book or like you write them for yourself or like put yourself in the voice, or if it's from a loved one, but then you saying them to yourself again, like you said, until you actually receive them is so powerful and cannot be understated. And again, it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to do it and embody it. Like and be in practice daily. And it is a practice. Like I said, we're all human. It's a practice. No one's perfect. But I always like to ask myself, like, when I start, it's going to feel uncomfortable, but it's like, am I the kind of person that like gives up when it feels uncomfortable, or like do I push through? Even at my workout class today, this is kind of a wholesome moment. I was like doing these plank things, right? And we were doing them for a minute, and we were in the last like 15 seconds, and it was like really getting tough. And you know, it's running out. She's starting the countdown. If you're in a workout class, she's like, all right, 5, 4. And immediately it's like, okay, I could stop now. Like, I could stop. We're about done, right? You know?
Yeah.
But I stopped myself and I was like, I keep going when things get hard. And I started saying that in my head. And I was just like, I keep going when things get hard. I keep going when things are uncomfortable. And I kept affirming that to myself. Or I could say, you keep going, and talking to myself. And I finished it out. And I was like, that's just so, it's always the corniest thing, but it's like truly powerful. And that's how you really make the shifts. So, oh, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. If you have anything else you want to say on that to wrap up, or like anything else, any other final guidance or anything that's coming through you want to share?
No, I would share. There's a song called The Reminder. It's on my playlist. It's so good. And when you were talking about the book, I was thinking about that song.
Oh.
And one of the lyrics is, "My love is just a reminder, find your center." And it's so delicious. And it's one of those things that, like, if you can't find the words and you don't have the wherewithal, like, play the song that lights you up and listen to that love coming at you and move to it and dance to it. And you will immediately shift into that space of higher love, and you'll be able to feel it. Like the simplest things, you know.
Literally, music and movement. It's like all the medicine you need, like literally.
Yeah.
And to talk about frequency, oh, that's so beautiful. That's beautiful, perfect. So I am so excited for Akashic Intelligence this weekend. I can't come live tomorrow because I'm teaching pole, but I'm gonna try to come live Sunday, and I'm definitely gonna watch the recording. Can you tell everyone about it so they can hop in last minute? They can still hop in today, can they? Or
They can hop in today. Yeah. So Akashic Intelligence is where we tune into the frequency of the Akashic records, and we dive deeper into uncovering the bigger questions that you have from this space of the Akashic realm. So if you've ever heard that word and it excites you, jump in. I'm going to explain all about it.
Yay! And just to be in Lisann's energy. I was saying yesterday, is like, I've seen like coaches be like, my programs aren't just you, like da da da, so that you can be in my energy, like putting it down. And I'm like, well, yes, we provide a ton of value, but also it is a huge benefit to be in your energy. Like, don't downplay that. So everyone join. I'm gonna be there. I'm so freaking excited. And I know we mentioned it a little bit already, but if you want to join my free workshop, 5K Frequency, it's happening next Thursday. Just DM me the word 5K, or comment on this IG Live 5K, and it is for spiritual entrepreneurs, aspiring or early stage, who really just want to learn how to unlock their intuitive edge in business, expand their capacity for abundance, and align to that 5K frequency so you can blow up your business to make your first 5K and beyond. So
I'll
get into that magnetic energy. Lisann will be there. Look at us supporting each other. I love it. Okay, thank you so much, Lisann. You are beautiful and amazing. This was incredible, and I know everybody that watched and participated got so much out of it. So you're amazing. Thank you. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Love you.
Love you.
And I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Hey guys, me again, just dropping in with a little outro. I hope you loved that conversation. I am so excited to go back and re-listen to this conversation for the 4th time once it's up on the podcast. And yeah, I hope you just really feel the joy and the frequency of love and abundance. As always, I would love to hear your thoughts. Just drop me a message. Let me know what you learned. Let me know your favorite part of the episode, your biggest takeaway. Of course, if you really felt like it was powerful, it would mean the world if you would share it out on your stories so we can help even more people align to this frequency and truly thrive in their life and their business. If you did love this episode and you have not already, and you could go ahead and just drop a little cute little rate and review, that would also mean the world. Again, if you do want to get in on the recording for the 5K Frequency workshop before it expires, then just DM me 5K on Instagram. And I know you've already probably gone and done this halfway through the episode because you just probably instantly fell in love with her, but go check out Lisann's work and give her a follow as well. I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to stop and take a deep breath, smile, have a great rest of your day or night wherever you are, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.